Well, and a point that you've made very cogently a number of times is that very often these debates that are alleged to be scientists critiquing religionists or something are really, or scientists who might critique a scientist such as yourself who has faith. They your opposite numbers will position themselves as making a scientific critique of you, but actually what's in play are competing worldviews.
That's right. And the important thing here, you say scientists like me who have faith, but we need to add, my faith is in God.
Mm-hmm.
And they are people of faith. There's a huge myth around in the world, and this is what they build on, that you and I were people of faith, and faith is believing where there's no evidence, so we're not worth talking to. I want to shout from the housetops that every single person is a person of faith. They have a worldview they believe in. And so when I talk about faith, I don't always succeed, to say faith in God. I've also got faith in the scientific method. And faith is something that operates in every area of life.
It's a really compelling point, John, that there's no worldview neutrality here. Everyone has a worldview. And yes, you see this in the writings of people like Hawking and Krauss and Dawkins. They will disparage philosophy and at the same time make an argument for a very naive materialistic philosophy for which there's virtually no evidence. And
it's even worse than that, Stephen.
Yeah.
Stephen Hawking's book, The Grand Design, starts on about page 4 by saying philosophy is dead. And the rest of the book is an attempt at philosophy of science. Well,
yes.
I mean, that's
very poorly done.
Just absurd.
Right. Yeah,
but you're right.
Terrific physicist, fantastic cosmologist, really bad philosopher of science. And
yes.
Yeah, and yet his public pronouncements are mainly in the mode of philosophical statements in defense of a materialistic worldview. And what I find fascinating, and we maybe should come back to this, is we've just been talking about these three big discoveries. The universe had a beginning. The universe has been finely tuned from the very beginning for the possibility of life. And then there have been these big infusions of information into our biosphere, making new forms of life possible. When I add those three things up, I think that they seem to have they certainly point to a designing intelligence, but when you think about the fine-tuning being present from the very beginning of the universe, it looks to me like the best explanation is an intelligence of a transcendent kind.
Absolutely.
And so there's actually not only has Christianity and Judaism, the monotheistic worldview, brought presuppositions to science that have made science possible, but now we're finding powerful evidence within the natural world that's pointing to God, to the reality of God. And so I think it's on those terms that I'd like to have this debate with our new atheist interlocutors going forward, because they've assumed that there can't be any evidence, and then they proceed to
well, that's a very cheap anti-intellectual cop-out. And you made a point a few moments ago that's worth picking up on. The central issue is not science versus God. The central issue is the collision of two diametrically opposed worldviews, atheism and theism. And there are scientists on both sides of that.
Right.
And so the real question to be asked is, where does science point, if anywhere? Does it point, as Dawkins claims, towards atheism, or does it point towards a transcendent intelligence, as I would strongly claim? And there is where the debate is. And people who think it's science versus God, I say to them, look, this cannot be so, for a very obvious reason. And the obvious reason is that if you go to the top level of science, let's stick with physics and the Nobel Prize, you've got Peter Higgs, who won the Nobel Prize a few years ago, who's an atheist, one of the more pleasant atheists, actually. And then you've got the American physicist, whose name escapes me just at the moment, he's still alive, the low temperature physicist, who won the Nobel Prize, who's a Christian. Now, the fact that you've got those two people their science doesn't differentiate between them. They both won the biggest prize that you can win. What the difference between them consists in their worldview. And unless we can see, and I think it's so important to get across the public that this is a worldview discussion, and we're bringing in evidence on which worldview you should believe. And
so it's a debate about which worldview provides a better overall interpretation.
Yes, explanatory power.
Right. The better, yes, exactly. It's an issue of explanatory power. And there, I think theism really has a decisive advantage. That's the case I'm making in a new book, and it's beautifully made in the film. This comes out.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Well, you do it so conversationally, it kind of goes down like butter. But I think it allows you've opened up a window to this great, big, and important question in the film: is God real or imaginary? As our friend Professor Philip Johnson used to say, was the most important question: is God real or imaginary? Yes. But then you talk about the different evidences that allow you to adjudicate that question, to assess it, and engage in that worldview debate, but not a worldview debate that's conducted purely in the realm of abstract philosophy, but rather the philosophy intersecting with the evidence, which what makes the film so
correct. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. John, just for the audience, how did you get involved in a film project like this? This isn't your usual.
Well, it actually genre. the idea came from a physicist, Steve Huff of the Pensmore Foundation, and he had read one of my books and looked me up in Oxford. I got this phone call. I didn't know who he was, and we sat down, and I found that he had been very interested in seeking for ways to explain to the public the deficiencies and inadequacies in naturalism. And we became friends, and he ran several conferences, and you took part in some of them, for example, in Westminster Theological Seminary. But I think what partly crystallized it was there was a film made with Kevin Sorbo in the role of an atheist professor called God's Not Dead. And I saw this film, and to my utter amazement, it explicitly used some of my arguments.
They were quoting you.
They were quoting me in some detail. So Sorbo was faced by his student called Wheaton, interestingly, with arguments that came from me. And of course, I was absolutely astounded because I'd not heard of this before. And that led to the idea, slowly, it took quite a while, of making some kind of a film, and eventually, about my life, and eventually the notion of involving Kevin Sorbo. So we met together, and we got on very well, and the rest is history.
So they made a film where they allowed you to make your own arguments for yourself, then?
That's exactly right. The idea was to try and get the thing out in an interesting way that's got a bit of human interest as well. And so that is what has happened. And of course, we didn't restrict it to the science God discussion, because there comes a turning point in the film where Kevin said to me, look, you know, all this stuff is good, but you actually are Christian. How do you justify the step from theism to Christianity? Which is a very important question. So I turn around and say to him, look, the best way to deal with that is to go to where it all started. And so the rest of the book takes place in Israel, where we're dealing with the much more history and experience specific claims that Christianity makes. So it's an interesting kind of blend. I don't know whether it's been attempted before. People tell me it hasn't.
It's a completely new genre, as best I can tell. It's a part travelogue, part intellectual autobiography, part science documentary. It fuses all these three things beautifully, and you guys are much to be commended. It's really good. I'm going to just give a little plug for our audience with some information about how to get more information about the film. There's a wonderful website, againstthetide.movie, not .com, but .movie. And you can also follow our coverage of the film as it gets closer to release on evolutionnews.org. John, I think you you've just had a fascinating career, and your voice is so important in this larger dialogue within our culture about what science can tell us about the reality of God. And we're just very proud to be able to give your film a bit of a plug, and the film succeeds beautifully in what you all set out to do. So thanks for joining us today for this interview, and we'll be sharing it with our audience, and we hope we can get a lot of people to go to the theater.